I have a question that I'm asking Laura based on something that I experienced the past couple days. So, if my mom is listening to this podcast, do not take offense to this recording because everything's a reflection and it's all meant to teach us. So, I'm learning something valuable from this. Okay, that is my preface.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, not sorry. Bottom line is, whenever we're fucked up, it's our parents' fault.
Exactly. Just blame it on them. Move on with your life. And you're done.
Exactly. So I had been really frustrated with a visit to my parents because I got frustrated because I was feeling that they're not taking a full advantage of the time that they have right now. That, from my perspective, I wish that they were traveling more, or that they were, like that my mom was getting out, engaging in the community more, or that, she was just doing things that I was judging as would be living a fuller life. Part of that is because she told me sometimes she wishes that she was still working. And I was like, well, that's just because it gave you something to do. I have that same feeling, and it's because it gives purpose and it also puts structure around the day. Anyway, I'm asking Laura to tell me now if what I feel like the real crux of the issue is what I determined this morning, which was I feel like given the events of like the latter half of 2024 and like all the chaos that was created and all the shifts that I went through, that I have like withdrawn so much to get myself back to a more stable place, to feel more grounded, that now I'm almost afraid that I'm going to settle into this more withdrawn, reclusive way of living out of protection.
Okay. So that's what you realized this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, well, they're, you know what they're going to say first. First, they're going to say, with like judging something, like judging the idea of being withdrawn or withdrawing inward, or like, I guess, not having a lot going on or not having a lot of activity. That's like a judgment.
Yeah.
So, so it's like, I mean, the first piece is kind of like removing that judgment. And they're like, when you were talking, they were definitely like, yes, of course it's a reflection. Like you're looking at someone else's life and going, I hate that about myself too. And I'm afraid that I'm going to be like that. And they're like, the bottom line is happiness. And so everyone is responsible for looking at their own happiness and deciding if they're happy or they're not happy, and then making the changes to make that happen. So like they're showing my sister Audrey, who has Down syndrome, for example, and we are always micromanaging her life, and she does not give a fuck. She is the happiest person unless you mess with her schedule, like, or her genes, like she's fine. But we're like, well, she's doing this and her back hurts, so we're going to give her a pillow. And like, I mean, we are trying to help her with her back hurting, but it's like we're projecting onto her, like we don't want our lives to be like that. She watches her iPad all the time, but she's perfectly fine. Like she's happy. And that's what you have to keep reminding yourself. Like, and even if like your mom or whomever is not happy, it's just our role to support people in the choices that they make.
Right, because she hasn't said
Basically,
anything about not being happy. It's like,
it's a full on projection.
yeah, a
So,
judgment slash fear that I'm projecting onto it.
right. And so what the other thing they were saying while you were talking was you're still in the healing process. So for those of you that are just tuning in, although we have not covered this before, Candy was in Asheville, North Carolina during the Hurricane Helene. And so they're just like, what they're saying is like, do not discount the level of trauma. And then they're reminding me that we covered this in a session you and I did together, like the other day, which was not recorded. But they were saying about how like you're still carrying a lot of the trauma in your body. And sorry, gosh, you guys are way too far ahead of my brain. So you're still carrying the trauma in your body, and you're still working on processing through that. So like the working out, like the breath work that you can do, they're showing you jumping up and down, which they've said before, like shaking it out. Like you're going to keep working through the process and the trauma, and maybe even working with our friend Jim, who's a shaman, to work on just like getting rid of that stuff, and you just are in the process of it, and you've got, like, they're saying a handful of weeks, so it's not forever. But that's not what you were asking. What you were asking is like, the reason you got so irritated is because of the fear you have of turning into that, because you feel like you're actually turning into it right now, not that you're going to even turn into it in 20 years. It's like happening now. And they're just saying, like, again, back to like not judging the healing, or not judging the withdrawal, and the withdrawal is the healing. Like,
Right.
when we have winter, those of us that are lucky enough to actually experience real winter, you really do like give yourself the permission. They're like, and even the people that don't get to experience real winter, like, give yourself the permission to do some hibernation. And they're talking about, like, that's on the macro level, but on the micro level, like, sleep at night, your body is restoring itself and healing. And they're even saying, like, you're doing work like on the astral plane and dream time to heal yourself. So they're like, winter, if you get like to really do winter as you're supposed to, it's the place where you take that hibernation and take that rest and take that space. And so they're like, you're actually like, you're coming into your spring. Meaning, like, the hurricane happened kind of in the fall, but you're still processing it, and it just happened for you. It just happened to coincide with winter because of the timing of the hurricane. So it's like, yes, you are exactly right. You are so mad because you feel like that's what you're doing, but you're judging it as something bad, and it's actually what's really needed right now for you. The hibernation is needed. And they're like, you're not, like, just remind yourself that's not who you are at the core. Like, you're going to want to go out and do things.
Okay.
Like, again, like, that will happen. So don't like
It won't be winter forever.
it won't be winter forever. Exactly. So they're just saying, like, just process it. They're like, your trip, your vacation that you're taking here in a couple of weeks, like, that's actually going to help kick off the release of it, because you're going to go to the beach, and that's just going to, like, shift your mindset, because it's been so cold and so snowy here. So they're like, that will help start to move it forward. But just, like, make sure you're pausing during the day to check in with yourself to see what needs to be released. And they're like, really, please just do some breath work. Because there's some emotions that need to come out from that experience. And they're just saying, like, just if you do a few breath work sessions, you're going to clear, like, right through a lot of it.
Right. Okay, cool. That's helpful. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So you said that sleep is so important because it's when we do the repair work. And God loves Sheba, but that's my dog. She goes through these spells where she just, like, walks the hall all night, and it makes it really hard for me to sleep because I hear her walking. I've trained myself to listen for her so that I can take her out if she needs to go. She's going to be 11 this year, so she's older, and probably doggy dementia might be starting to set in. But, like, there'll be usually 2 to 3 nights in a row where it feels like I don't get really deep sleep because she's waking me up. And then, like, maybe there's a night, maybe 2 in a row, where she sleeps all night. And I go to bed, fall asleep, and then I wake up in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. Is that having an effect on my ability to repair?
Yeah, it's not great.
No shit, you guys, it's not great.
When you were talking about that earlier before we started recording, what they showed me was earplugs, and then you just said, like, you wait to listen for her to wake you up. I was like, would she nudge you if she really had to go to the bathroom?
I don't know. Maybe.
Because, like, they were also showing, like, your, like, earbuds and listening to, like, brown noise or something. Yeah, they're just saying, like, it's not the end of the world, but it's not helping at all.
Okay.
And you have to figure out, like, if it's like 2 nights in a row, and then the third night you just need to, like, let yourself sleep and just put in, like, earbuds and music, or not music, but brown noise or whatever, and then, or put, like, earplugs in and just let yourself sleep for a night.
Yeah.
So they're like, try not to let it go for the third night in a row.
That's good. That's a good idea.
But this is really like, because so they're like hem haw. They always are hem hawing. So they're hem hawing. The hem was, this is a good advice for everyone. That was like about the dog. If there's something keeping you up at night, unless you have a newborn, whatever, you still have to keep it alive. The haw is the work you need to do for this is actually like crying. So the sleeping doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Like it's there. So when they're saying it's not great, it's like just, we need our sleep, but it's more
Yeah.
general. But this specifically, like if you're really just trying to clear what happened the last half of 2024, it's like, it's more emotional purging. And that's not really what's happening at night. It's a different kind of healing. It's more of the rest and like processes that are happening in the body.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Cool.
Cool.
Thanks. That's very helpful. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
High
no
five.
problem. Okay, I have got a question. Here's what I've been thinking about. So, so like I told Candy about this and I'm like, I'm not going to tell you right now because I want to record this for the podcast. It was really hard for me to keep my mouth shut. All right. So like, okay. So the inauguration just happened and I'm like fired up and I'm like posting all this shit on my stories on Instagram. And I'm also like, ugh, I know this is not really like in alignment with being sort of like really spiritual, I think. So I'm judging myself about that. And then I'm thinking about the people I know that just never get caught up in this stuff and they're just very like above the fray or what outside of it or whatever, and it's not very many people, but I'm thinking about them seeing my posts and I'm like, oh, they're knowing that I can't like keep myself out of it and be in the flow and all that stuff. But then I started thinking about that guy, and I meant to look his freaking name up, but I can't remember his name. The guy that wrote the 10 levels of the soul book that Oprah had on her website, or
Oh,
she
yeah,
had, I
yeah.
mean, on her podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's basically saying, and I don't know if this is true or not, but that there are 10 levels of the soul, and like you kind of come back and like progress your way up through the 10 levels. Oh, this is actually from Kabbalah, so whatever, I'm just Googling it. Anyway, I don't know what his name is, but we're not getting to that right now. So anyway, he says like the 10th level, I distinctly remember being people like Nelson Mandela, who are like, they basically end up giving up their physical life, well, their actual life, but also like their goods and their belongings, and like they end up in prison because they're protesting something that they don't believe in, that they believe to be unjust. Well, and they gave some other examples of other people that have like gone that far. And then he told Oprah she was like level 9. So it's like she's at that point where she's not quite giving up her physical material goods and material stuff, but she's like up high, whatever. So he's like, she's 8 or 9 or something. So I guess my question is, what is the balance between like going with the flow and not being in resistance and not putting up with the bullshit that like you just believe is not helpful, or like the stuff you not helpful, but just like unjust?
Oh, that's a really good question. They love the question. And what they're showing is the flow is different for everyone, first of all. Whether you're applying the model of like soul levels or some other model, doesn't matter. Flow is going to feel different to everybody. The key is to pay attention to whether you feel in resistance or in judgment, because judgment is also a form of resistance. So if let's use the example of posting something to social media. If you see something and you're like, that really resonates with me, I really want to post that. And you just do it without, I don't want to say without thinking about it, but without getting in your own way about it. It resonates, feels in alignment, you take the action. That's being in the flow. What they're wanting you to look at is what's happening after the post, and if there's judgment happening post, and why. Because you can be in your flow, but then step out of it and judge the action that you just took, because some part of you then moves into fear. Like, what if people that don't understand me or don't have the same viewpoints as me? What if they judge this post that I just made and they don't want to be friends anymore, or whatever the story is? But they want you to look at whatever those thoughts are and ask if, when those thoughts are coming in, if that feels like you're in the flow. Because the other part of being in the flow is that, for example, Nelson Mandela, maybe he gave up all of his worldly possessions, gave up the material world to really fight for injustice and inequality. But each of us are giving up something along the way when we're in the flow and when we're in alignment. You can't be in your own personal flow and alignment and aligned with everyone else. Doesn't work that way. So
Right.
what you might be giving up is a friendship, or an alignment with someone else's beliefs, or walking this line of neutrality. They also want to back up. When you see those people who look like they're sitting above the fray and they're never getting involved, that may be their alignment, that may be their flow, or it may be that they're holding themselves back from being who they really are and what they really want to be, because for them, it's safer to not cause any stir or to not
Right.
be in any sort of engaged conversation or discussion that might result in tensions.
So like what you're saying is like, so I guess the question, how people are always like, ugh, the spiritual community is like, just go with the flow and like, don't be in resistance. Like, think about it. Like, just think about this. Okay. Don't be in resistance. And then but if you're like, let's say you don't like Donald Trump and you're now in the resistance, like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like,
I do know what you're saying. They know what you're saying.
These two
They
things
love this.
don't, like, it's
No.
the same word. Like, I'm just
don't.
like, how does this work out together? Because, like, I don't know. Okay, I think I've asked the question properly, so let's see what they say.
Yes, you have asked the question properly. They want us to know that being in the flow and being in and not being in resistance, or being in resistance, whichever way. The flow and resistance, they're coupled together and they're necessary. Think of resistance as a rock, like the rocks along a creek bed. The water is the flow, right? The water's flowing over and around and through the rocks, through the cracks, wherever it can. But it's having to make this like real-time choice of what their flow is going to look like based on the rocks, the resistance that they're coming in contact with. So resistance is just a guardrail, or a potential course correction, or like an attention grabber for you to be able to do a gut check of, is this really in alignment with me? Because if there was no resistance, we'd just be out here doing whatever the fuck we wanted whenever we wanted, because there would be no guardrails to tell us when we're getting in our own way, or we've overstepped, or we're not in alignment. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, I think, yeah, kind of. So I have another question. So, like, the resistance, like,
It
they've
feels like
said
we're
this.
talking about like some Nazi shit, the
I
resistance.
know, we're in the underground, the France in World War II. Viva la resistance. But like, a person gets into resistance, and that shows them that they're out of alignment.
Yeah,
that
it
true or
shows them
false?
they're out of alignment, that they're feeling fear, that they're judging something. The resistance is simply the moment to get your attention to be like, wait, there's something here to look at.
Right. That's the personal resistance. Now I want to talk about, like, I mean, I don't know. They just announced this bill they're trying to put through in Indiana that's going to make abortion, like get rid of being able to access the abortion pill, and make women have to sign an affidavit if they've gotten raped. Like, what kind of action do you take? Like, Nelson Mandela got thrown in jail, right? It's like, because of the actions he took. So, like, resisting the system, I guess, is what I'm saying. versus your being in your own resistance. I feel like we've covered being in your own resistance. How does this apply to the resistance of like the system, like on a political level or on like a bigger scope?
So with this question, the assumption is that the action to resist the government is in alignment with you,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So if that is the case, like you feel passionate about the, this law, this potential law is an overstep or an overreach, and you feel passionate about wanting to get engaged so that you can, right or wrong or find a middle ground or whatever. If you feel in alignment with it and you don't feel any resistance about the action that you're taking, then they don't care if you're pushing back against a parent, a teacher, the government, whatever, because there are times when that is needed. That energy is necessary for progress on the human level. Like on a non-human level, none of this matters. But on a human level, where you're building a community and a society where you all have to interact, it is necessary to resist things that feel like they're being pressed upon you or upon a group of people.
Right. So I'm so curious, like, because then the final piece of this that I thought about was like, you know how in the spiritual world too, they're always like, people are always like, well, it's just like, if that's how it's like what's happening, then that's like what's meant to be happening.
Yeah, but
Like with the subtext of like, why bother resisting it?
oh yeah, okay. So I always want to take a pause here because I want to do a double check before I speak.
Okay.
Because I was starting to get fired up. I was like, whoa, let's pull back here. Let's check back in.
It's okay. Get fired up. Show them how you're fired up, and then.
Well, they're excited too. They love they love this question. Again, they're coming back to, there are some people here who we'll just use the word peacekeepers or keepers of the peace. They don't want to ruffle any feathers at any level about anything. So they use spirituality as a justification to walk that path. And it may be in perfect alignment and in the most heart-open, heartfelt way.
Yeah, with their soul's alignment. Yeah.
Exactly. Not everybody is in that alignment. Some people use that as the reason to not get involved. However, let's just take that and set it aside. If you feel in alignment with getting involved, then that is part of what your soul is here to do, is to get involved.
Right. And I think that's the problem with like all of this stuff is like, it's this like blanket, there's like so many blanketed pieces of advice. It's like everybody needs this many grams of protein per this many pounds of your body. And it's like that, we're going to find out in the future that that's not true. And it's probably very individualized, but we're actually going to find that out with science. For this is like, you're like, everyone is so individualized. Why is anyone giving any blanketed like spiritual advice anyway?
Yeah. So they want, basically what they're saying is the word spiritual or spirituality has on some level been hijacked and has been taken and has been put in a little bit of a box. Like, if you are a spiritual person, you behave in this certain way. And it's not the same for everyone, but they're just sort of this overreaching or like broad umbrella that on some level we've all been operating under, and that's about to fall apart. Because spirituality is really no different than, say, use the word religion. There are hundreds of flavors of religion. And depending on what you're drawn to, what you believe, how you were raised, what works for you, you could fall into any different sort of belief system. And it might all be in alignment. It might all be accurate. It might all be right for your soul. Spirituality is the same way. There are millions of flavors of spirituality.
Right.
And it really is finding the one that works for you. They're like, not every spiritual person does yoga. Not every spiritual person does Tai Chi. Not every spiritual person is into Ayurveda. But some people might be into little bits and pieces of each of those things or none of those things and into something totally different, and they're still spiritual. They're just like at the heart of everything, you're all spiritual beings. Period.
Right.
You're just figuring out how to show up that works best for you.
Okay. I love that. That makes perfect sense.
And, I don't even know if I want to say the last part. Like this applies to murderers too. They're just like,
What the
this
fuck?
is like,
These assholes.
it really applies to everyone. Everybody came here to have an experience, period. Like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
right now they're just reflecting back to like my previous question. Like if we just all stop judging each other's experience, we'd be much happier.
Right.
It doesn't mean we
Exactly.
have to like it.
Right. Or like do it,
Yeah.
or to like even do it, but it's like a respect of just the journey that the person's on.
Mm-hmm.
And the like their soul's blueprint, like their card that they came here with. Yeah.
No, what did you say? Their card? Yeah.
Their card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a good question.
Yeah, that's been on my mind. I've been thinking
I like
about
it.
that one.